contamination around the above ground tanks. There is some appliances and other things on the property that need to be removed and disposed. We examined those carefully during our phase 2 and don't believe there's any chemical releases from those kind of things. It's really inert kind of materials have been placed in the northwestern part of the property. We also reviewed a lot of the geotechnical reports and things that were done on the property that examined the soils at many, many locations and at deep locations, and no evidence of environmental contamination at those areas either. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. I know, again, our reports are available and conclude that there's nothing further needs to be done regarding the environmental condition of the property other than what we've discussed. Yes, sir.
You mentioned it met the residential testing. Is that the same as for schools?
Yes. Yeah, it is the most strict environmental standard. We compared things to Ohio's Voluntary Action Program standards, which I'm a certified professional under that program, and it's as strict as it gets.
And is there other agencies that have to come and test too? Like you said, the EPA, were they here? Did they test? And are there other agencies that have to test before a school is built, or is all that you guys did, is that all that's required?
What we have done is all that's required to my knowledge. There are some funding requirements that could kick in, other testing, but it's all done by independent professionals like ourselves. So I'm not aware of anything further that would need to be done. Yes, ma'am.
I know there's people that say they drive by the site and they see sitting water, so automatically they assume it's not out of the floodplain. Could you kind of talk about how bringing it out of the floodplain doesn't necessarily preclude having pockets of water since the final grading's not done?
Yeah, and we're environmental experts, and that's geotechnical, civil engineering kind of questions, so I have to preface my qualifications in that area. But there are regulations that you have to follow on filling low areas within the floodway and floodplain, and I'm sure those kind of engineering studies would need to be done. But certainly the presence of ponded water does not in itself mean that it hasn't been filled to a proper level. That's all based on engineering studies of the elevations and things like that.
So in essence, there's nothing that would cause you any grave concern with the site other than a little bit of staining. In terms of that cleanup, that's a simple cleanup. For those that don't know, that's something that the existing owner is going to be required to fix prior to handing it over to the school district, as well as cleaning up the garbage that's been dumped out there in terms of that type of stuff. But there's nothing in your eyes that causes a big red flag here.
No, sir.
Thank you.
You said the property is out of the floodplain. Is that the 100-year floodplain or the 500-year floodplain?
Really, the floodplain issues are beyond what we were asked to do at all, so I don't know the answer to that in either case.
Was all the property out of the floodplain, or just where the building is supposed to go?
I don't know. That's not part of what our environmental assignments are intended to do. That's a civil engineering consideration.
Does anybody know?
Yeah, it's a 42-acre site that's owned by RDBD Investments. 42 acres.
Is totally out of the floodplain?
Correct.
100-year or 500-year?
As far as I know, I don't know that I didn't know there was a differentiation.
My understanding is there's two classifications. I could be wrong.
I've heard of the 30 and the 100,
30.
and I know it qualifies at the 100. I've never heard of a 500.
If you look at FEMA site right now, that area has been deemed at the 1%, which is the 100-year flooding. So it's above that.
This basically means, in theory, every 100 years the property would flood.
No,
it's above that. So
it's
the area around it could flood.
Okay. How far out of the floodplain is it then? An inch? 10 feet?
Well, it's hard to say. We'd have to go back and see what the civil engineering would be, but when we talk to the professionals, when you talk to the engineering and SFA, their plan is to bring it out even further with the building pad itself. So there will be even a greater increase in just the building pad in itself.
But it's the building pad, the parking area, and the future stadium site. They're gonna bring that up 24 more inches.
The state of Ohio and OSFC have fairly strict regulations in terms of where these buildings have to be and what elevations they have to be. So moving forward, there's no way that we're gonna be able to build a school down there that's gonna be outside of their specifications. They're not gonna let it happen.
Or even comment further on what a 100-year flood really means.
Well, it's the likelihood that it's gonna flood and